Have you noticed how lately nothing really seems to touch you? It doesn't matter what happens. Good news, social gatherings, achievements, everything feels muffled, distant, without the sparkle it used to have. And the strangest part? You're still doing everything right, but inside something remains silent. Maybe you're going through what I call the quiet quitting of the soul. You haven't given up on life, but you've stopped expecting anything from it. You've stopped getting excited, stopped vibrating, stopped fully showing up. You still go through the motions, but only with your body, not with your heart. And this is a symptom few people recognize, yet many silently carry. From the outside, everything seems fine. You work, talk, reply to messages, smile in pictures, but deep down everything has turned into an emotional checklist. And joy, that genuine joy that used to light up your eyes, it seems to have left without saying goodbye. And here's the paradox no one talks about. The more you try to fill that emptiness with stimulation, the more it grows. Because the problem isn't the absence of pleasure. It's the disconnection from the circuit that once allowed you to feel it. In this video, we're going to walk through the layers of that emptiness together. We'll talk about why things have lost their flavor, how comparison has been draining your energy without you noticing, and how modern marketing has reprogrammed your brain to live in a constant state of feeling like something's missing. We'll explore the quiet role of dopamine, the gray phase called anhedonia, the invisible weight of the emotional denominator, and the emotional callus you've built to avoid more pain. But that also ended up pushing away the small pleasures of life. And in the end, we'll build a way out together. Not a promise of euphoria, but a realistic path back to presence, to micro-victories, and to the kind of joy that doesn't shout, but sustains. If this has already stirred something inside you, I warmly invite you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notifications. Because here, we don't rush through things, we move through them with presence. And if at any point in this video you feel something shift inside you, just know you can always return here whenever you need. Shall we begin? Have you ever caught yourself in a moment where it felt like you were fulfilling all of life's obligations but without truly living? This isn't just about work, it's about life as a whole. The quiet quitting of life is something more subtle, more silent. It's not an explicit giving up, but a quiet surrender to the bare minimum. The body keeps going, the mind keeps going, but both are merely present, offering nothing beyond what's strictly necessary. This symptom shows up in every social gathering you attend out of politeness. There's no real joy anymore, just physical presence. You find yourself at parties, meetings, or dinners, but your mind is somewhere else, disconnected. A smile here and there, but without the energy that used to accompany those moments. You are there, but you're not really there. And this is the first major clue that something inside you is disconnecting from the pleasure of living. Hobbies that once brought fun and enjoyment begin to fade away. Activities that used to give you pleasure, whether a sport, reading a good book, or even taking a walk outdoors, no longer seem to make sense. It's not that you dislike them, but rather that you can't find the energy or motivation to fully engage. Life becomes a checklist of actions, not an experience filled with genuine emotion. There was a phase when I was doing everything right, exactly as expected of me. I was completing my tasks, attending events, meeting other people's expectations, but inside, there was a sense of disconnection. I was fulfilling a series of duties and commitments without actually feeling alive. It was as if I was simply ticking boxes without emotion. This disconnection doesn't happen all at once. It begins gradually, as the things that once excited you start to lose their intensity. Social gatherings that used to be anticipated with excitement become just another obligation. It's not that you no longer enjoy being with friends or attending events, but the depth of the experience fades. The energy of life, once vibrant, now feels dimmed. The hardest part is that you start getting used to this sense of apathy. It doesn't arrive in an overwhelming way. It quietly infiltrates every area of your life. And that's exactly the problem. You grow so accustomed to the minimum, to the absence of genuine joy, that it starts to feel normal. But I assure you, this apathy is not normal. It's a clear sign that something inside you needs to be rebalanced. I remember a time when I felt completely lost in the middle of my routine. I was carrying out all my responsibilities, yet I felt empty, without purpose. It was as if I were on autopilot, doing what needed to be done, without enthusiasm. Even moments that should have been meaningful became a flat, emotionless flow. And that, my friend, is the quiet quitting of life. When nothing feels rewarding anymore, the mind begins to pull away. It no longer offers itself fully, no longer commits to the present moment, because it senses that nothing can be gained from it. The energy required to truly be present dissolves, while the body continues moving mechanically, simply following the commands of routine. This creates frustration because you feel like you're doing everything right, yet failing at something much deeper. This symptom doesn't stay confined to one area of life. It spreads everywhere. Lack of energy, disconnection, and absence of pleasure extend into work, relationships, and even your journey of self-understanding. It's as if you're completing a sequence of steps without actually living what each step contains. And when you look at it honestly, you realize your life is no longer filled with meaningful moments, but with a series of soulless tasks. You might try to find a logical explanation for this. Maybe you're overwhelmed. Maybe work drained your energy. Maybe it's just a phase. But the issue isn't external overload. It's internal overload. You're no longer offering yourself fully to anything because all your energy is being used just to stay on track. And when you stay on track without truly living, you slowly lose touch with who you really are. When nothing rewards you, the mind stops offering itself fully. This key phrase captures the heart of the problem. When you're only doing things without receiving any internal reward, your mind begins to disengage. This isn't a conscious choice. It's not something you decide. It's your body and mind trying to conserve energy in the face of an endless cycle. I know you've felt this before. You've caught yourself doing things on autopilot, simply to meet expectations, without feeling that anything is being given back to you. And when that happens, there's no emotional reward. Life starts to feel empty, and what once seemed interesting becomes just another item to cross off a list. That is the quiet quitting of life. And you may even find yourself asking, how do I get out of this routine? But the first step out of this apathy isn't searching for more external stimulation or trying to force meaning into things. The first step is looking inward and noticing where you stopped offering yourself fully, where you began merely existing instead of living. The next step is learning to read the signals of your body and mind and realizing that this quiet quitting isn't a sentence. It's an indication that it's time to take a step toward reclaiming genuine joy. Before we talk about how to reverse this process and reconnect with the joy of living, it's important to understand how this disconnection is directly linked to another invisible addiction: comparison. The comparison between your life and other people's lives and how it quietly drains your energy. That's what we'll explore in the next topic. You don't notice when it starts. It's subtle. A scroll here, a glance there, a small observation about what someone else has, does, or achieves. Suddenly, your mind is no longer analyzing your own life. It's using someone else's ruler to measure your happiness. And worse, that ruler changes all the time. Before, you compared yourself to your group of friends or someone in your town. Today, with just 2 taps on your phone, you're comparing your entire life to the global elite. Beauty, success, wealth, purpose, fame, body, travel, relationships, all packaged into meticulously edited posts. But your mind believes every image. You might even know it's not real, but your brain on an emotional level doesn't distinguish. It sees someone else's reward and switches into I should mode. I should be happier, more productive, more attractive, richer, something more. And the effect is cruel. Your own life begins to feel small. Comparison is treacherous because it doesn't come as an attack, but as a silent expectation. It's like running on a treadmill out of breath while seeing Olympic athletes pass you by with a smile. You try hard, but you're not moving forward. And the more you run, the more inadequate you feel. The problem isn't wanting to grow. The problem is that when you constantly compare yourself, you disconnect from your real path. You stop seeing how much you've evolved, how much you've overcome, how far you've already come. Because now the focus is no longer on your progress, but on your lack of perfection compared to others. This constant comparison hijacks your joy, You might be living an incredible moment, but seeing what someone else is doing makes it lose its shine. A special dinner feels ordinary. A dream trip feels cheap. Your own face in the mirror starts to look wrong because someone else's filter becomes your reference. You become a prisoner of an endless comparison. And the worst part, the ruler changes every day. There's always someone with more, with something new, with something better. That's not motivation. It's constant punishment. Because no matter how much you achieve, it will always feel like less compared to something greater out there. There's a simple but powerful phrase: comparison steals joy. And it's not just a figure of speech, it's emotional neuroscience. When you compare, your focus shifts from gratitude to scarcity, from presence to longing, from acceptance to criticism. Your body enters threat mode, and your soul contracts. You don't need to isolate yourself from the world, but you do need to remember that your path is yours alone. Your mission, your frequency, your measure of success, none of them can be defined by someone else's feed. Silencing comparison is the first step to hearing your own joy again. So now I want to invite you to pause for a moment and think, what word represents what you need to value more in yourself? It could be gratitude, acceptance, courage, progress, presence. Whatever it is, write that word here in the comments. Let it echo into the field. Name your frequency. When you share, you anchor. When you write, you declare. Not just to others, but to yourself. And when you see other people declaring their words too, something inside you remembers, I'm not alone on this journey. That's the collective field. That's shared healing. Comparison dissolves when you return to your body, when you feel your breath, when you look honestly at where you are and honor this point in your timeline. Not as a weakness, but as the exact place you needed to be right now. To learn, to grow, to awaken. You don't need to run faster. You need to run in the right direction. And sometimes the right direction is to turn inward, shut off the external noise, and reconnect with your inner compass. It doesn't compare, it feels. And truly feeling is what brings color back into life. But if comparison steals your joy, what happens when even the things you achieve quickly lose their flavor? Why does it seem like, even when you get what you wanted, the satisfaction doesn't last? In the next topic, we'll talk about how modern marketing has conditioned your brain to feel like something is always missing, even when everything is going well. Today, you no longer buy a product. You buy the promise of an emotional state. Advertising doesn't say that perfume will simply make you smell good. It says you'll be desired. That clothing will make you respected. That car will give you freedom. The real sale is invisible, the feeling of sufficiency. Modern marketing has become an engineer of lack. It studies your insecurities, tracks your behaviors, and offers solutions wrapped in emotional shine. And the most dangerous part, it works. Your brain, conditioned from a young age to seek rewards, becomes highly responsive to these baited messages. The result, you feel lack, even when you have everything. You know that feeling of, I just need this one thing and I'll be fine. That's the emotional finish line marketing draws, but that can never actually be reached. Because as soon as you arrive, it moves. The sneakers that were everything yesterday are outdated today. The amazing camera you bought has already been surpassed in 2 months, and your satisfaction evaporates. I remember when I finally got something I had wanted for months. I planned, worked hard, visualized it, and when it finally arrived, the feeling lasted less than I expected. What was once ecstasy turned into indifference, and soon after, a new emptiness appeared. That's when I realized I wasn't desiring the object, I was chasing the promised feeling. It's like spraying perfume in a moldy room. For the first few minutes, the smell improves. You even breathe deeply and smile. But after a while, the scent fades, and the mold remains. The purchase was just a distraction. Marketing didn't heal what was rotten inside. It only disguised it for a limited time, and the cycle begins again. This mechanism is addictive because it manipulates your anticipatory dopamine circuit. The brain loves the feeling of almost getting something, but once it gets it, the pleasure drops. That's not your fault. It's emotional neuroscience. But it is your responsibility to notice when you're being emotionally manipulated by promises that can't deliver what they suggest. The problem isn't desire. Wanting is human. The problem is the trap of the eternal promise that you're always just one more thing away from feeling whole. That illusion is what generates frustration, anxiety, comparison, and exhaustion. Because joy is never where they told you it would be. It's always just one next step away. And the more you chase the next emotional high packaged as a product, the further you drift from yourself. Your real experience begins to flatten, while your projected emotional expectation inflates, until real living loses its flavor, and imagining something new becomes the only temporary relief. This mechanism is addictive because it teaches us to feel chronic lack of beauty, progress, success, validation. But deep down, that lack is a narrative that was injected into you so you would buy more. And you only begin to free yourself from this dynamic when you realize that nothing external can fill what is misaligned within. So let me extend an invitation now. If you could write a phrase that breaks this cycle of emotional scarcity, what would it be? Something you'd like to repeat to yourself in moments when you fall into the trap of just one more thing. Write that phrase in the comments. Let it echo as a vibrational reminder of your own awakening. It could be something simple like, I already have enough, or nothing is missing in me right now. Or maybe, I don't need to prove myself anymore. Any phrase that brings you back to center, that reminds you your value isn't in your acquisitions, but in your conscious presence. Share it. You could be the spark that awakens another soul. Because when you name your truth, it begins to accompany you. It becomes an anchor, a reminder, a living affirmation. And when you see others breaking the same cycle, something shifts in the collective field. Scarcity loses power, and sufficiency starts to be felt, not just spoken. You don't need to stop wanting, but maybe you need to let go of the expectation that the next achievement will save you. Maybe the next step isn't buying, but breathing. Not running, but staying. Not achieving, but accepting. Because it's in that space that true joy begins to return. But if joy still hasn't returned, maybe it's because your brain is searching in the wrong place. Maybe it's not what you consume that's broken, but the internal circuit that's dysregulated. In the next topic, we'll dive into what truly sustains your motivation, the dopamine circuit, and why the problem was never your phone. It's how you learn to depend on it. There's a major misunderstanding about dopamine. Many people think it's found in objects, in your phone, in food, in your feed, in likes, but the truth is more subtle and much deeper. Dopamine isn't in things, it's in you. The phone, the game, the chocolate, none of those contain dopamine. They simply activate your reward system. They are keys that start the engine, but the engine is already inside you, and when that engine is dysregulated, it doesn't matter how many keys you use, pleasure won't start. Dopamine plays three essential roles. It creates the feeling of pleasure, it generates the desire to repeat the experience, and it reinforces action. In short, it's what drives you to seek, to act, and to repeat what feels good. But when this circuit is overloaded or out of balance, motivation disappears. Imagine your dopamine system like a high-speed highway. If you constantly use intense stimuli, social media, short videos, notifications, the dopamine traffic becomes congested. Nothing flows smoothly anymore, and simple things like reading a book or soaking up the sun lose their impact. You no longer feel joy in lighter things because your brain has been trained to only respond to spikes. Only big explosions get your attention. What was once enough now feels boring. This leads to apathy, chronic boredom, and that strange sensation that nothing is truly exciting anymore. The irony is that the more you seek instant relief, the more the circuit wears down. It's like flooring the gas pedal without ever changing the oil. The system weakens, and soon you become increasingly dependent on external stimuli just to feel something. This is the silent collapse of motivation. And the phone? It became the symbol of this dependence, but it's not the villain. The phone is just a mirror of your internal pattern. It only reflects your state, chasing the next click, the next message, the next quick hit of pleasure. It flips the switch, but it can't sustain the joy. When you realize that dopamine lives inside you, something shifts. You stop blaming objects and start observing how your mind is conditioned, how it's been trained to seek escape, not presence, reward, not depth. And that's when the great emotional re-education begins. Re-educating your dopamine circuit doesn't mean quitting your phone. It means relearning how to enjoy the simple and the slow. It means letting the system rest, silencing the spikes, slowing the rhythm, lowering your demand for novelty, and rediscovering joy in the now. You can retrain your brain. You can teach it to enjoy what is subtle again: the smell of coffee, the touch of water, the sound of birds, the silence, the reading. This takes pause. It takes unlearning. But slowly, the circuit finds its balance, and genuine joy starts to return. It's important to remember dopamine isn't the villain. It's vital. It's the engine that moves you, but like every engine, it needs care. It needs balance. Push it too hard, and it breaks. Neglect it, and it shuts down. The secret is regulation, not extreme restriction. Maybe your problem isn't a lack of pleasure, but the excessive expectation of pleasure. Expecting everything to be intense, instant, surprising. That's addictive. That's draining. And it short-circuits the system. Life doesn't need to be a fireworks show to feel meaningful. It's time to reconnect with dopamine as it truly is, a natural flow within the body, responding more to intention than to explosion. An engine that can be activated by breath, movement, human connection, purpose, rest, and gratitude. The simple can be enough, but the senses must be re-educated. And maybe if everything feels grey, the problem isn't the world outside, but the internal volume that got stuck. In the next topic, we'll dive deep into this sense of emotional numbness, anhedonia, and explore why, even surrounded by good things, you might still feel nothing. There's a silent state that many people live in without being able to name it. Nothing hurts sharply, but nothing truly excites. The colors of life seem faded, as if someone turned the saturation dial down. You look around and think, everything is fine, but I don't feel anything. This state isn't deep sadness nor classic depression. It's something stranger. Everything feels meh. You want to dream, plan, wish, but you can't find the emotional energy for it. The body moves, the mind functions, but the heart doesn't respond like it used to. Anhedonia is exactly that, the loss of the ability to feel pleasure. Not just intense pleasure, but also simple pleasure. Breakfast doesn't excite you, music doesn't give you chills, conversations feel hollow, and the most confusing part is that from the outside your life may seem perfectly normal. It's important to say this carefully. Feeling the world in shades of grey doesn't mean something is broken inside of you. It's not weakness, it's not laziness, it's not ingratitude. It's a sign that your emotional system has switched into energy-saving mode. Two causes frequently appear in this state. The first is prolonged stress, often accompanied by repeated traumas or adversities. When the body spends too much time in alert mode, it learns to protect itself by shutting off pleasure. Feeling less becomes a form of survival. The second cause is excessive stimulation with easy rewards. When everything is fast, intense, and immediate, the brain loses sensitivity. It's like emotional taste buds getting numbed. The simple is no longer enough, and the complex becomes draining. Imagine trying to listen to a beautiful song, but with your internal volume stuck on 2. The song is there. The world continues to create beauty. But something inside of you can't amplify it. Not because you don't want to, but because the system is exhausted. At this point, many people try to solve the problem by seeking even more stimulation. More videos, more distractions, more goals, more plans. But that only deepens the grey, because what's missing isn't intensity, it's regulation. Anhedonia doesn't ask for forced excitement. It asks for deep rest, it asks for security, it asks for time, it asks for the body to trust that feeling is safe again. It's like defrosting something that's been in emotional cold storage for too long. And here I want to invite you to an honest pause. If you could describe how the world has felt lately, what word would you use? Grey? Heavy? Empty? Neutral? Write that word in the comments, not to explain, just to recognize. When you name your internal state, something organizes itself. You stop fighting against what you feel and start listening. And curiously, many people reading the comments will realize, I'm not the only one. This collective recognition softens the invisible weight. Anhedonia isn't a final destination, it's an interval, a request from the system to slow down, reduce the noise, and gradually rebuild sensitivity. It's not about feeling everything again at once, it's about feeling something again. Small signs of pleasure may reappear first, a moment of calm, a deeper breath, a subtle smile. That's already the system coming back to life. Joy doesn't return as an explosion, it comes back as a whisper. But there's one factor that makes this grey world feel even heavier, the sense that nothing you do matters because it always feels insufficient. In the next topic, we'll talk about this, the giant denominator that makes every step forward feel small and why that robs you of your ability to feel rewarded. There's an illusion that traps many people, the idea that no matter how much they do, it never feels like enough. They complete tasks, reach goals, even get results. But when they look at it, a thought comes up. Okay, so what? As if the effort lost its meaning at the finish line. This feeling isn't failure, it's distortion. It's like there's a giant internal denominator used to measure every small victory. You do something good, and your mind replies, nice, but look at how much is still missing. The focus isn't on the progress, it's on the distance from an unreachable ideal. Dr. K. Alok Kanogia explains this with striking clarity. He says pleasure is relative. It depends on your perception of progress. If you feel like you're moving forward, your reward system responds. But if you feel like there's still too much left, your brain shuts it down. No dopamine, no reward. Think about the start of a hard semester. You study for 2 hours, but it feels like nothing changes. There's still so much ahead. Now think of the final week before the big exam. Studying the same 2 hours can feel like relief, accomplishment, satisfaction. What changed? Your perception of advancement. When your internal denominator is too big, when you compare yourself to unrealistic ideals, inhuman standards, or impossible benchmarks, every step feels small. This puts you in a constant state of discouragement. You act, but don't feel. You move, but don't celebrate. And in that silence, joy disappears. This distortion creeps in quietly. It starts as a whisper. You could have done better. Then it turns into an emotional addiction. It's never enough. And before you know it, you're stuck in an internal system where no win triggers a reward, and that cuts your motivation at the root. The most dangerous part. This can exist inside an apparently successful life. You get results, you check boxes, but deep down, you still feel behind, because your brain hasn't been trained to recognize what you've done. It's been conditioned to obsess over what's missing. This giant denominator is built from past experiences, trauma, comparison, perfectionism, and social narratives. But it becomes cruel when you internalize it. When you believe that you'll only be worthy of joy once everything is fixed, and that day never comes. The path out begins with one simple shift. Reduce the denominator. Stop looking at your life like a debt you have to pay. Start seeing it as ground you get to walk, step by step. A place where every breath of awareness already matters. This reprograms your reward system to celebrate the real and not just the ideal. You don't have to wait for total transformation to feel joy again. You can learn to feel pleasure in the small victories, in presence, in consistency, in gentleness with yourself. That's not settling. It's honoring what is real and alive right now. Training this new gaze is a practice of presence. It's like changing the lens you use to measure your life. It's leaving the what's still missing mindset and entering the look how far I've come state. And little by little, this subtle shift starts to release dopamine again. Joy begins to return. This isn't about shrinking your dreams. It's about finding meaning along the path to them. It's realizing that every micro-step, when acknowledged, fuels your vital energy. You move with more lightness, because now you're being nourished as you walk, not just chasing some distant finish line. You're not lazy. You're not unmotivated. You might just be stuck in a system that made you believe only the extraordinary deserves applause. But the truth is, life is built in the ordinary, and those who learn to see beauty in the simple reclaim the pleasure of existing. But maybe your struggle to feel rewarded isn't only about what you demand, but also what you've learned to avoid. Maybe after so many stumbles, your mind created emotional shields that now block you from getting excited about life. And in the next topic, we'll talk about exactly that. How you armored yourself so much that you lost your emotional touch, and how to begin reversing that process. There's a kind of protection that no one sees. It doesn't appear as a shield or physical armor. It shows up in prolonged silences, neutral responses, lack of excitement. It's a type of defense you built over time, and it slowly began to isolate you from yourself. Maybe you didn't even notice, but somewhere along the way you learned to feel less in order to suffer less. Life hurt you little by little. Broken promises, people who let you down, goals you didn't reach. And unintentionally you started lowering your emotional expectations. It's like forming a callus on the soul. Just as the feet develop calluses to withstand constant friction, the heart also creates its own layers of protection. But what protects also takes away the sense of touch, and before you know it, you no longer feel pain or pleasure. This emotional callus shows up in subtle ways. You might be present in happy moments, but you don't let yourself get excited. You receive compliments, but you doubt them. You start projects, but with no expectation that anything will truly bloom. It's as if your system learned not to get excited, just to avoid later disappointment. I've been in that place. After so many disappointments, I realized I stopped getting excited just to avoid getting hurt. I stopped having high expectations. I started showing up without expecting anything, and it seems prudent, even wise. But the price is high. Life stops touching you. That emotional shielding protects you from falling, but also keeps you from flying. It reduces risk, but it also erases possibilities. You stop trusting the good moments. You get suspicious when joy shows up, and you start living in a constant anticipation of pain. Let me say this with care. You didn't become cold. You became armored. That doesn't make you less sensitive. On the contrary, you just protected yourself too much. And now you need to remember what it feels like to feel without fear, to feel without bracing for pain. Undoing this callus doesn't happen with a decision. It happens with small acts of trust. It happens when you allow yourself to feel joy over something simple without waiting for something to go wrong after. When you celebrate without thinking of the fall. When you start to believe that something good might actually last. You don't need to rip the protection off all at once. You just need to soften the edges. Take a deep breath in the presence of a beautiful moment. Let yourself laugh without censorship. Open up a bit more to the possibility that now might be different. That what once hurt doesn't have to happen again. And that begins with recognition. Recognizing that you hardened, that you built walls, and that, on some level, you're ready to let a sliver of light in again. If this resonates with you, write in the comments a single word that represents your first step toward reopening that space. It could be trust, open, feel, allow. It doesn't have to be a perfect phrase, just one word you feel you need to inhabit again. When you write it, you anchor it, and when you see others writing too, you remember that you're in a collective process of healing. And maybe that gives you the courage to keep going. Unlearning your emotional callus is an invisible act of courage. It doesn't require grand declarations. It requires presence, receptivity, a bit more surrender, a bit less fear, and the quiet understanding that you deserve to feel, not just to survive. You are not broken, you're just overprotected. And maybe now it's time to soften the armor, not out of naivete, but as a conscious choice to live with more truth, with more touch, with more present soul, and with less fear of being touched by life. But what happens when, even after softening your heart, life still feels dull? What if this emptiness you feel isn't the end, but a passage? In the next topic, we'll talk about that silent moment, the desert of transition, where the old stimuli no longer bring joy, but the new light hasn't yet learned how to feed you. There's a moment in the inner journey when everything seems to be on pause. The old distractions no longer bring joy. but the new ways of living haven't yet awakened pleasure. It's an uncomfortable interval, an emotional desert where silence feels more present than anything else. This desert is frightening because it feels like an end. It feels like you lost something, like everything dried up. But in truth, this is not a place of death. It's a place of transition. What's happening isn't the collapse of your joy. It's the reconfiguration of your source of meaning. For a long time, your joy came from stimulation, from little highs, from peaks, from novelty. But now something in you is being called to a different kind of pleasure, the pleasure of stable presence. And at first, that shift can feel strangely bland. It's like someone who spent a lifetime eating highly seasoned food and suddenly switches to natural, whole ingredients. At first, it seems tasteless, but over time, the palate adjusts, and what once felt bland begins to reveal deeper, cleaner, more real flavors. In the desert of transition, there's no point in running. The more you try to rush the process, the emptier everything feels, because the desert is not a punishment. It's a purification of your emotional system. It's when your body and mind begin to detach from the dependence on quick rewards. This is the moment when you relearn how to feel, when you stop chasing excitement and start developing intimacy with silence, when you trade addiction for presence, and when the flavor of life no longer comes from intensity, but from depth. You may feel out of place. You may long for a time when everything felt more alive. You may think you lost something within you, but what you lost was the anesthesia. And now your body is relearning to feel without the noise layered on top. It's a fragile phase, but also a sacred one, because in it, God whispers more closely. Life slows down so you can hear yourself, and your sensitivity begins to return, not like a storm, but like a breeze, like a gentle presence, like light slowly entering through a crack. That light doesn't scream, it doesn't impress, it doesn't explode, but it warms, and it starts to melt the ice you once called protection. It shows that there's a kind of joy that is more stable, more mature, more sustainable. A joy that doesn't need to shout to be real. In the desert, the old joy dies, but a new way of being is born, a way that is less dependent, more aligned with who you are becoming. And like all births, this one requires time, stillness, and trust in the unseen. This phase asks you to trust without feeling, to walk without a map, to not mistake silence for absence or discomfort for failure, because not all discomfort means something is wrong. Sometimes it's just the sign that something is shifting within you. You don't need to understand everything right now. You just need to allow yourself to go through it, to let this desert do what it came to do, to separate what was just stimulus from what is essence, what was dependency from what is true, what was noise from what is soul. What once made you vibrate may no longer serve you, and that's not a loss, it's maturation. The soul is asking for a new nourishment, a new relationship with time, with pleasure, with meaning, and that doesn't happen overnight. It happens in the crossing. But what if this crossing still feels too long? What if you feel stuck in this limbo for far too long, unsure how to begin again? In the next topic, we'll talk about that, about how to start feeling again by rebuilding motivation through micro-victories, simple practices, and new internal rhythms. Feeling again isn't about forcing enthusiasm. It's about creating a new inner environment where sensitivity can bloom once more. After so much time spent in defense mode, in overstimulation, in escape, the body needs a new invitation, a new rhythm, a new way of approaching life itself. This restart doesn't need to be grand. In fact, the simpler it is, the deeper it can become. The key lies in rebalancing your circuits, regulating the excess, reducing the noise, shortening the distance between you and what still pulses, even if in silence. A good first step is to identify the axis of your life that's most energetically poor. Sometimes it's not your whole life that lost its color. It's one specific area that's draining everything else. A tool known as the life pie can help. Draw the main life areas, work, health, relationships, spirituality, and notice where things feel most out of balance. Then comes the second move, reduce the denominator. You don't need to fix everything at once. Choose one area, one focus, one place where it's possible to generate a bit of energy, even if it's just a spark. And for a while, allow yourself to want less, so you can feel more. That wanting less isn't giving up, and it's grounding. It's refusing the demand for total transformation in order to make space for small internal reconstructions. Because what's most keeping you from feeling right now is the belief that it's only worth feeling once everything is fixed. But what if all it took was a spark? The third step is establishing non-negotiable habits, not as a cage, but as support. 3 simple practices, fixed in your calendar. One for the body, one for the mind, one for the soul. It could be walking, reading, meditating, cooking. What matters is doing it with presence, not urgency. The fourth action is reducing easy rewards, not as punishment, but as nervous system liberation. Less artificial dopamine, less endless scrolling, less overstimulation that drains you. And in its place, slow pleasure, cooking calmly, basking in sunlight, listening to music while doing nothing, having deep eye contact conversations. And then comes the final step, the daily micro-victory. 5 or 10 minutes a day dedicated to something you build with your own hands, with your own intention. Writing, organizing, planting, drawing, giving thanks. It's not the size that matters. It's the repetition. It's the vibration of "I did this today." Micro-victories are like matches. Alone they seem small, but repeated every day they rekindle the warmth of presence. You don't need to set the forest on fire to feel alive. You need to light one match a day until your body remembers the pleasure of existing. You are not lost. You're just tired of plans that are too big, expectations that are too heavy, timelines that are too unrealistic, silent pressures. Feeling again is a downward path, down from the mind into the body, from demand into presence, from control into contact. So now I want to offer you a grounding invitation. If you could choose one small action, no matter how tiny, to resume today, what would it be? Something light, something yours, something that could reconnect you, even for just a few minutes. Write that action in the comments. Let it be your micro-victory for today. When you write, you affirm. And when you see others doing the same, something inside you warms up. You are not alone in this reconstruction. All of us, on some level, are trying to feel again. And every small gesture counts. It counts far more than you think. Because real life isn't in the grand breakthroughs. It's in the micro choices made with care. It's in tending to the body like someone learning to trust pleasure again. In looking at the soul like someone rediscovering the beauty of simplicity. In relearning how to say, "This touched me today." And if this series of topics touched you, maybe now is the time to bring all the pieces together. And now that you've walked through each layer of this emotional silence, tell me sincerely, at what point in your life did you start settling for less than you knew you deserved? When did apathy stop being uncomfortable and start feeling normal? Maybe you realized the problem was never that you were broken, but that you were conditioned. Conditioned to expect peaks, explosions, instant rewards, in a body and soul that simply want to rest, that just want to relearn how to feel. You don't have to chase your old joy. Maybe it won't return the same way, but it can return in a new form. Less noisy, more steady, less outer sparkle, more inner warmth. Because deep down you're not trying to find pleasure again. You're trying to find connection. With what matters, with who you are, with what still pulses within. And this reconnection doesn't begin with grand promises. It begins with micro-victories, with conscious pauses, with small rituals of presence that gently tell your system, it's safe to feel again. You don't need to set the forest on fire. You just need to relight the first match, then one per day, until the warmth returns, and with it, the desire to stay present. If this video sparked something inside you, an insight, a memory, a breath of relief, leave a gentle like down below. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell, because the next videos will walk this journey with you, step by step. And before you go, share with me in the comments, what phrase, image, or moment touched you the most? Sometimes your reflection is exactly what someone else needs to read today. This space is alive, it's collective, it's safe, and you are a part of it. Little by little, without pressure, you'll learn to feel again, I'll see you in the next video.